Hello, I'm Charles Harrington, and I would like to invite you to join me as we look at acrylics as an attractive and a viable alternative to watercolor. So, to start this, I would like to draw on this canvas board a hypothetical landscape. Since the purpose of this is primarily demonstration, we'll not worry too much about accuracy of drawing. So here's kind of the top of a hillside, and we want some a grassy hillside cascading down, and I want to show you how to develop some textures in there. And we'll let a little bit of sky show in here, and then some background trees that'll be fairly soft. So let's start by mixing a little bit of blue, because there's a little bit of sky in this. Let's mix a little blue. We'll add a little bit of water. Let's also add a little bit of flow release, which changes the composition of the water slightly, a couple drops of that. And then we'll also add just a little bit of matte medium. It looks milky when you put it on, but it's transparent when it dries. And what it will do is to help maintain the viscosity of the mix, so that it kind of stays in place on the canvas a little better. So we'll go ahead and add some water, but we've added those other things too. Let's go ahead and mix a little burnt sienna, a little bit of flow release, and we'll put just a little bit of the matte medium in this one also. Let's mix a little sky color, and we'll mute the blue just a little bit. And we will put a wash over that sky, just like we would with a regular watercolor painting. Now, I've grayed that sky down considerably. That's okay though. Probably could have gone with a little more blue. And I'm not going to worry about going over some of this area that's going to have the background trees on it. What I'm concerned with right now is that I get a nice even wash over this part that's exposed as a sky. While we're letting that dry, I'm going to mix up a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to mix some of the same additives to that. And working with our mist bottle in our left hand to add a little some soft edges so that we don't get hard edges right now. I'm going to, you see that's spreading pretty much like watercolor. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll come back down in here and add a little bit of cool to it on the bottom side. This is going to be grass area, so we want it roughed up a little bit. Let's let that dry for a little while. Now that our first wash is dry, let's go back and apply a second wash. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I got a little gray in the sky. I wish it had been a little bit more blue. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a light glaze of blue over that sky. Keep in mind that you can add as many of these glazes as you need to, as long as you dry between each one, and the different applications do not mix, and it keeps a fresh look. So that turns that a little more blue. Come back into the foreground and do a second run at those washes. Now, we don't want to get too yellow with this foreground, but to demonstrate the technique, we'll come back with a little bit of a little more, add a little of the burnt sienna on the foreground. This is going to be grass, so it's going to be, so if we rough it up a little bit, we go ahead and add a little more blue just while we're at it before we dry this second wash. And again, this is grass, so it's going to be kind of rough looking anyway. So let's just get something in there for color. Okay, that wash is dry. So let's come on with the next stage. I think I will apply some background trees, some distant trees. What I want to do is wet the background. I can use any clean brush to do that. And down to the horizon line, or the top of that little grassy knoll there. I'm going to use the same technique and go back and add some trees. What we have in the background in this scene is a combination of pine trees, evergreen trees, and kind of dead winter oak trees. So it makes a nice opportunity to come in and use the complementary colors, the red and the burnt sienna, the green of the pine tree. So we may have to do this in a couple of applications, but we'll start it. And then you dip into this and get some of that oak color. There's varieties of oak trees that when the leaves die in the fall, they don't fall off. They stay there over winter, and then in the spring, when the new buds come out, they push the old leaves off. So let's come in and get that combination of colors. And I get one other thing here. I want to get in the middle. I want to see some more distant trees, and they'll be shorter, but they'll also be bluer and grayer. So for that variety across there. And I'm going to lay that brush aside and get me a smaller brush because this doesn't dry quite as fast as it does on paper. So it gives me a chance to micromanage this, if you will, with a smaller brush. If I don't like where the paint's settling, then and if it's not softening enough at the top, I can use my real fine spray mist and mist it a little bit. We missed a spot over here. Probably ought to add a little something to that right now. And the other thing is where the background trees meet the top of the grassy knoll. We don't want to get a hard line up there, so I'm going to deliberately soften that just by dragging a damp brush across, and it's absorbing some of that color, but it's also providing a means by which that paint can crawl down into the lower areas. Okay, let me go ahead while that's working there, and I'll keep this brush handy. I want to go ahead and drag a little stuff around in this foreground, and while that's drying, can't do much. Okay, I want to get some a little bit of dark in here, and I'll do that through detail that I can add to the grass. Okay, put a little of that kind of stuff in there. Drop in a little blue and a little. We're kind of repeating the colors we've got back there. Let's take this little pointed brush, and I'm going to manage some of the tops of these of this shape here, so that it might resemble grass forms, so that when I come back later and add detail, it's going to be more believable. Now it looks like our background trees are dry now, so what I want to do now is to go back in there and create a little bit of structure over those. And it's here we'll begin to overlay some opaque over this. Okay, before I mix the opaque on there, I'm going to take the rigger and put in a few just darker strokes that represent trunks of trees, perhaps back in the dark. It helps to kind of give this a layered look by combining some darker tree structure and a little bit of lighter. And actually, if you look into a woods or forest like this, you see that sort of thing. You see some highlights and you see some dark shadows. But in this case, we're pretty much doing it because we need it compositionally, but also we want this to communicate trees, and it's a fairly realistic looking painting, so we want it to be believable as trees anyway, put it that way. Now, what I usually do here is just kind of mix up something neutral from the palette, add a little gesso to it, because we're not trying to say tree trunks are brown or tree trunks are gray or whatever. We just want some lighter colors, and what I want to do is get a little lighter color coming across some of these darker shapes, and what that does is provide a little distance. It will also add a little bit of believability to the fact that those are woods and they go on back deeper. Now, I want to work on the foreground a little bit. What this is supposed to represent is a grassy field, so we want to do a few things to break it up just a little bit visually, give it a little bit of texture. Doesn't take much, and that's probably too much. As quick as I finish this and it dries, I'm going to come on with a little splatter technique, which that always enhances that kind of wind-blown wild growth of grass. Let me come on with a little more of that pure yellow ochre up here, kind of in a focal point place. Give it a little look of sunshine. And then let's kind of feather that out a little bit up on this side so we don't get the same thing consistently all the way across. Okay, so let's let it dry just for a few minutes.